Hi, uh, this is Ravi Gupta. I am CEO and founder of Elets Technomedia Private Limited. We are a 17-year-old organization and we work in around 30 verticals. Uh, and we are focusing mainly right now in this panel on the field of education. We have been bringing out a magazine called Digital Learning for last 16 years. We have a huge focus at Elets on innovation in education sector. And we have been organizing several conferences inside India and outside India in the field of education for last 17 years. And today we are going to have this panel on school education and how COVID-19 is going to reshape the school education sector. So as we start, before we start the panel, we have an esteemed speakers who have joined us. So I will request each of the speakers to briefly introduce themselves and their school scope, school history, and where they are located, which also these they work in, so that the audience has a full context of this. And we are right now around 200 people on the Zoom, and thousands of people are watching us right now in the digital learning Facebook page. So I request Roshan to start, please.
Hi, well, thank you very much, Ravi for inviting us on this panel. And it's a pleasure to be here and to have this opportunity to share about our experiences of doing school leadership at this time. I'm from City Montessori School, that's based in Lucknow. So we're a chain of 18 schools around the city of Lucknow with a total of 57,000 students. And we have rapidly adopted online learning and looking forward to sharing various experiences related to that.
Excellent. May I request Chandra SheKar to introduce yourself? SheKar, you need to.
Good afternoon to all of you, and good afternoon to Dr. Gupta. Thank you for having me on this panel. It's indeed testing times for all of us. My name is Chandra SheKar, and I am based out of Hyderabad. I am part of Jain group of institutions. We are the JGI group based out of Bangalore and schools based out of Hyderabad. We operate in 7 states, 28 schools, around 35,000 students as of now. And I really look forward to what schools can be post this lockdown. So that's my take on it, and thank you once again for having me on this panel.
Thank you. Welcome. May I request Vivek Varshney to speak, please?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Vivek Varshney. I'm the founder of SpeedLabs. We are a personalized practice-based learning platform where our focus is that every student is equally important, and how the schools will adopt to this change. When the students have moved forward, they have become more comfortable with online learning. Now, my definition of online learning is much beyond the online classes. So online classes and online lectures will be one part of it, but the personalized learning where the schools, teachers and students all are integrated with each other will be the much more important part of it. Thank you for having me and look forward to have a good discussion.
Great. Welcome, Vivek. May I request Kanak Gupta to speak, please?
Thank you, Ravi for having us as part of this panel. It's always good to connect with you. I think Elets has always been at the forefront of trying to pass on information and collate information across educational sectors. And I think it's important for all of us to get together. Appreciate you inviting me. My name is Kanak Gupta. I'm part of State MR Jaipuria schools. We're running 34 schools across the country. We have about 30,000 students. We've been in education for almost 7 decades now. And we also run 4 management institutes across the country. We offer PGDM courses there. And I look forward to sharing my views about what we've done in terms of adding value to our stakeholders, not just our students, but also our teachers, our parents, in terms of school education, but also beyond, because I believe that this is the opportunity that we've gotten to learn beyond the content and course books as well. So we've done some things. I look forward to sharing those views and learn from everyone. It's a very good panel and a lot of friends catching up after a while. We didn't get a chance to catch up on Zoom before. We're doing this now. So look forward to exchanging views with everyone.
Great. Welcome, Kanak. So let's, I think the format we will go into is that first we look at the challenges posed by the COVID-19 situation. And in the second round of a discussion, we will go for what are the opportunities this COVID situation is providing to the school sector. So let's discuss the challenges first. Roshan, if you can start.
Yeah, so I mean, all the attendees on this call are educators, so I'm sure they're very familiar with the challenges and are experiencing these challenges day to day. Personally, a half-hour meeting in person is such a normal thing. A half-hour meeting over Zoom leaves me completely exhausted. So I can't imagine, how tough it must be doing that day in, day out with multiple classes. It's a huge challenge on multiple fronts. It requires adapting to a completely new form of pedagogy as one teaches through the screen. All the interactive elements of classes are struggling right now. There are obviously difficulties with attendance, despite huge efforts from teachers. Of course, there are always households who are lacking in devices or internet connections or discipline. So there are a lot of troubles. I think teachers all over have been doing an incredible job of trying to combat these challenges. What I'm particularly admiring right now is the way that teachers have kind of lost their inhibitions about innovating and about using technology. And they have kind of embraced it and they've learned to work things out for themselves. So normally they used to perhaps rely on assistance and help from people who are more expert in IT. And now, of course, yes, that help is there to some extent in the background, but really teachers are taking their own responsibility to learn and to familiarize themselves with a number of different apps. And every day new challenges are presented. Everyone was told to jump on Zoom. And then suddenly a lot of stuff has gone in the news that we shouldn't use Zoom for this reason or that reason. And now everyone has to switch to a different platform. And they're just going along with it and taking it in their stride. So I think it's really admirable the way that teachers have been behaving despite these challenges.
Great. Thanks, Roshan, for acknowledging the challenges which the teachers are facing on being online and taking those classes. Kanak, your experience in this challenges.
Sure. So, I agree with what Roshan just said, and I think, absolute kudos to our teachers across the board, across all schools in the country, across the world, for braving this so well. I think it's incredible as to how teachers have understood, and I think the pandemic has given this opportunity for us to remove this fear element about technology, has actually made our teachers understand that technology is an enabler. I think we've been saying this theoretically for a very long time. Now it has happened. We've been saying that we need to innovate in education. We've been talking about flipped classrooms for a very long time. I think now is the time when this is happening the most. So absolutely hats off to our teachers for making this happen, trying to make it engaging, because they are under serious watch. Everyone is looking at the classes because obviously everyone's home. So they would like to see what's happening in the child's classroom, interact with parents, interact with other teachers as well. I think also hats off to the parents. Because I think after the initial memes sort of went around all over the country that now every bedroom's become a classroom, and now parents will understand what a school goes through. But I think after the initial 1 week of fun jokes and memes, now everyone is looking forward to consolidated learning happening, because finally people have realized this is going to be a long-term problem. We are not going to come out of it come 3rd of May or 15th of July or 15th of October. This is going to take a while, because obviously there's going to be a lot of mental block that parents will have, that students will have. The other day, my daughter asked me, will I be able to share my tiffin box with my friends when the school opens up? Whenever it opens up, will I be able to do that? Now, that's a tough question. if any parents are tuned in, if any teachers are tuned in, I promise you, that's one of the toughest questions that you can answer. So I feel that, those were the challenges: devices, technology, internet connections, those things we will be able to figure out. But the other problems also we need to figure out gradually as we go along. I also realized one more thing, that when we all went online and we all started discussing how can we make classes happen on Microsoft or on Zoom or on Larks or any other platform, we sort of looked at it from the IT perspective rather than making it an engagement session. Later on, we realized, and a lot of technology companies sort of jumped on it and said that, we have a sort of a sure-shot solution. What I feel is that, a solution that will work for me might not work for someone else and vice versa. And I think we've become smarter about it, but it has been a challenge to make a decision at this crucial point of time. The third biggest challenge, which I feel, Ravi ji, is with economics. I think, because of everything that's going around, and let's face it, there is no revenue coming to anyone, but everyone is facing expenses. And I think that is another challenge which has emerged now, where we're all trying to make sense of how long is this going to sustain, how long is it going to be, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or is it going to be beyond, and how are you going to control costs at the same time focus on revenue. I feel these are the three sort of main challenges that have come up in the last 3.5 weeks for all of us. And I feel, and this is a very pessimistic view, I'm a very positive person, I'm very optimistic, but this is a very pessimistic view. I don't see this ending anytime soon. I don't see us coming out of it very soon. It'll take some time for us to come out of it.
Great points, Kanak. You have highlighted all the aspects, including the human aspects of sharing a tiffin box, which actually summarizes all challenges in a simple sentence. May I request Chandra, SheKar, DP to talk about the challenges?
Well, I think I can't deny but agree with both the earlier comments, one of Mr. Roshan and Kanak, because they have touched upon very important and integral parts of the academic and school environment. But having said that, in my personal opinion, the challenge itself has been changing. I mean, when the initial lockdown was announced for 21 days, or even before that, the state government said that you shut the schools first, we were looking at a challenge of how do we conduct the exams? How do we look at finishing off what is to be done? And now we are no longer looking at that, but then we are looking at some other aspects. As that challenge has progressed, today, all of us, I'm sure, all schools, all education institutions across the country, or for that matter, even across the globe, we are connecting with our students online. But the challenge still exists, assuming that the teachers are good enough to make that switch over and they're able to tune themselves with technology and they're able to connect and do a great job online. The assessment, the evaluation of how much the students are able to understand what you are delivering, that also is a big question mark. In fact, we do this engagement with our teachers post every Zoom session at the end of the day. And the biggest question which comes across is, we know that we have finished this concept, but we don't know where is it going. We don't know, okay, you may do a quiz, you may do a kind of a pop-up poll, but that's not it. That's not enough. So one challenge definitely is the kind of teaching learning's impact, the teaching learning's process and the impact on it. That's my view. The second thing, as Kanak rightly said, is, as management or as leaders, if we call ourselves, the biggest challenge is, see, you need to know what is the logical end, or where do we go from here to actually communicate to our stakeholders, whether it is a teacher, whether it is a parent, whether it is a vendor, or whether it is somebody. Now, when these questions come across from all corners and you don't know where it is going, it kind of sounds hypocritical to say that it's all going to be well and we will get out of this together. But at the end of the day, you're not offering any concrete solution to anyone. In my view, that's the next big challenge, where it's just words and words and words. And let's face it, none of us have an answer, a clear logic as to where we are heading. So these are a couple of things which I personally feel that the challenge. And as I said that at the beginning, I would like to say that again, that these challenges will change. Today we are talking in 17th, 18th April. Maybe in the next 1 week, this challenge may not mean anything to all of us because there will be a new challenge which is going to come up.
Good point. Thanks, Chandrasekhar. I think you have explained very well that maybe the challenges of the next week will be different from the challenges of this week, and they even might have escalated. We have Vivek Varshney, who is on the other side of the table. He's not running a school, of course, but what are the challenges you are seeing to the school education sector, seeing it from the other side?
So I will take the point forward which was raised by Mr. Chandrasekhar. So the challenge is not just limited to the infrastructure or the usage of online classes, etc. But I personally see the challenge much more after the class. So after the class has completed, let's say whichever mode we use, whether it is Zoom or Google Meet or anything, but after the class is over, then how do we take care of the rest of the engagement? Like earlier we used to give homework, we used to check in the next class, are we going to do this? Now that is where the biggest challenge in my opinion is, because what in the form of online classes we are able to fix is the very low hanging fruit, and which within a week or 2 weeks everyone will be able to figure out, because that's not a rocket science. What may be a much bigger challenge is that if this situation extends beyond 3 months, if this situation extends beyond 6 months, then how are the educators, the school system going to take care of the homeworks, the engagement, the post-classes engagement, the peer-to-peer learning, etc. So that is where I think I see much bigger challenge, and which is also being less attended to.
Good point, Vivek. We are now having Reekrit Serai with us. Welcome, Reekrit.
Hello.
Thanks for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Reekrit, briefly, if you can introduce yourself and your school, and then talk about we have just started with the challenges of the COVID-19 situation for schools. So if you can highlight about those things from your perspective.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, and I'm honored to be a part of this panel. I've got a lot of friends on this panel, so wishing all of you a great afternoon. I had some issue with Zoom, that's why I couldn't join in earlier. Given the current situation that we find ourselves in, of course, it is difficult for for schools, educators, but then just not for schools and educators, but for everyone in the world. And we have to take cognizance of this fact, and then we all have to work, hand in hand to come out with a solution. So first of all, I would just like to say that I hope everyone is keeping safe at home during this current crisis that we find ourselves in. Now, with regards to the challenges that we face in schools, this is a brand new world for us. This is the new. And then we all know what is the new at this point of time, which is online education. We've been a part of this in bits and pieces in the past, but we really haven't been as immersed as we are in online education as we are now. The world has drastically changed, and of course, coming out of this crisis, things will never be the same again. So what I foresee over the next few months is that once we are out of this crisis, there will be a mixed approach towards online education. Many schools were particularly old school in terms of educating their kids. They've been forced to pivot to an online model at this point of time, and there have been a lot of challenges which not only the educators, but the parents and the staff and the students have gone through at this point in time as well. So it will be a brand new world. We don't know what's going to happen, but the only thing we know at this point in time is that is that the world is going to change drastically, and we are a part of this change, and we have to change along with the world if we want to be a part of if you want to be a part of a better future once we are all out of this crisis.
Great, Reekrit, you have talked about the new and the new normal which this word has witnessed. Let's talk about this. What is the exit strategy, which I think Kanak had highlighted in his point. So I will request, in fact, Kanak to talk about that. What he sees will happen when we exit out of the situation. What might be the exit strategy, and what might be schools looking in July, August, when we might actually open. So we lost him, it seems. So by the times he, I think, joins again, I will request Chandra to talk about his opinion on what happens in July, August when the school starts.
Well, I think first thing and the most important thing post this entire thing, if it gets over as quickly as June, July, and we are back to our offices and schools and campuses, I think the first thing is to kind of rein in an element of positivity, an element of empathy, and an element of leadership, which is more of I can say connected leadership, because you need to empathize, you need to kind of bring in positivity, and as quick as possible, I know it is tough, it's easier said than done, but as quick as possible, try to get over the phase which we went through and then get back into our schools. I'm sure kids, that is children, will do a great good there, because they come with a lot of energy, they come with a lot of enthusiasm, and that will help us. But the first thing and the most important thing is we need to try to act, I will use the word act, that as if everything is normal. That's the first thing we need to look at. The second thing is try to be prepared. Try to be prepared for any such eventualities. I mean, this morning I read a news article. It is kind of scary, where they say, or people have warned, that the China and other places may be ready for the next round of COVID-19. That is as early as November 2020. Corona is going to return, and that is where we need to be very careful about. So the point is not just COVID-19. The point is this is a wake-up call for schools, for the whole world. We need to be ready for a lot of things. I think the next thing we need to focus is prepare ourselves for any such eventualities. I know life is tricky. If you prepare for 10 things, the 11th thing often comes up. But the point is, that is no excuse for us to say that let's take it as it comes. We need to be prepared, and we need to get into that kind of an environment. The third thing, which is respect to the exit strategy, is we need to have a policy, a kind of a framework to handle different issues. Like, for example, I saw on the question and answer column, some of them are asking that the governments may say that, okay, post the lockdown period, the schools or education institutions should not charge the fee from the parents for the lockdown period. Now, these are things which cannot be done or dealt with case to case. This needs to be a very holistic kind of an approach. It needs to be a policy. It needs to be kind of comprehensive. And I think that is where we need to use our time now, as well as the resources, to plan ahead and say that, okay, if these situations come up, how do we handle it? And it has to be a one voice kind of a solution, because it cannot, because the stakeholders may be different individually, but under the bracket of parents, they all are same. Under the bracket of students, they all are same. Under the bracket of private schools and schools in India, we are all same. So we may deal differently, but we need to deal the same thing. So I think these are the strategies we need to work out, if you call it as exit strategies.
Yes, Chandrasekhar, good points. We need to plan now, and just to add here that today morning I had a webinar with the Secretary of NCRT, Major Harshpuni, and I was asking him that what's going to happen in July, August, schools are opening by that time. What changes you are seeing? So he was like talking about that government is looking at implementing social distancing in schools. So he was saying that we might have batches in school, that half of the class comes on one day and the half of the class comes other day. So that may again increase a lot of economics for schools, for the maybe having shifts, maybe having opening on a Saturday or a Sunday to accommodate the batches, and which actually dramatically may increase the whole school economics, that can change the economics and the whole structure of the school also. So, Roshan, your views upon the exit strategy from this situation, and what will be the situation of the school you are seeing in July or August? Yeah.
Yeah, well, of course, no one can accurately predict exactly when this lockdown is going to be lifted for schools. I think it's probably reasonable to assume that even if other sectors open up on 3rd of May, schools will not. Anything which requires large numbers of people to congregate together will remain closed for a long time. So schools will be, one of the last things on the list to return to normal. So even July, August could be an optimistic estimate. It could be even longer. I don't want to be too pessimistic, but we never know, and we have to be prepared for the worst. Having said, whether it's July, August, whether it's later, whether it's the end of the year, there will eventually come a time when things do go back to normal. And so there are sort of two levels of exit that we have to think about. One is, of course, this kind of difficult transition period where things might be, where we might have schools in batches, things are a little uncertain. And then we have the time when things are going back to normal, but in a post-corona world. So if I just address the latter one first, when things eventually do go completely back to normal, I don't believe, there are a lot of voices around saying this will lead to a fundamental change in the way that we think about education because of all of this, because of all the online learning. I don't believe that that is necessarily the case, but what I do think is that we will have learned so much from this crisis that, first of all, I think teachers' attitude towards the use of technology will have fundamentally evolved, and technology will become much more of a norm in education. And secondly, even long before Corona, we were facing school closures all the time on account of hot weather, cold weather, rainy weather, protests, whatever's going on. So everything that we've learned here will remain relevant later on as well. And I think all of the learning which we're gaining here won't be going to waste at all after the crisis is fully over. I think all the things we've learned here will be very applicable even then. Coming back to the more sort of interim exit strategy, when things might be sort of slowly returning partly to normal. Of course, it's impossible to predict exactly what's going to happen. One big problem that a lot of teachers are going to be facing is the fact that throughout this period, teaching online classes, of course, it's been impossible with the best effort in the world. It's been impossible to get 100% attendance. There has been a consistent quorum of students who have not been attending. Now, in regular school, the number always shows 90% attendance anyway. So some people might say, okay, well, if it's 90% online, it's 90% in school, what's the difference? The difference is that the 10% online who are not joining the classes tend to be consistently the same 10% throughout. So there's a whole 10% or more who have completely, unfortunately, not been able to participate in this whole online learning process. So they will be behind. And secondly, it's questionable the effectiveness of how much learning can really take place through this method of learning. Obviously, that doesn't detract from the importance of doing so. Even if hypothetically learning was zero, just the fact that this engagement is going on makes such a huge difference to students' mental well-being. It prevents learning loss, at least just by keeping engaged with the teacher and keeping engaged with the subjects. Students will have learning loss prevented, whereas if they weren't doing online learning, actually over time they would lose past things that they learned in school. But having said that, it's questionable how much new learning is really being imparted. So the question will be for teachers, there'll be some students who've learned, some who haven't. How do we then resume classes? And I think there'll be a lot of experiments that schools will have to do. But one thing that is being considered is that upon return, some kind of assessment will have to be done, and there'll probably be broadly 3 categories of students: those who have attended classes and learned a lot online, those who have attended classes online but have struggled to learn despite attending, and those who have not been able to attend. And accordingly, we may have to divide students into batches as per the level which they've attained throughout this period, so that they can accordingly be brought back up to speed and brought back onto a level playing field. I mean, this is open speculation. Again, it's impossible to say exactly what's going to happen, but just looking at trends and seeing the way things are going and trying to think of what could be a viable exit strategy, that seems to be a likely approach that a lot of schools are talking about.
Great. Thanks, Roshan. May I have inputs of Kanak, Gupta on this exit strategy and how you are seeing in July, August scenario if the schools are opening up by that time?
Sure, Raviji. I think I got cut off because the problem all of us are facing, everyone's watching too much Netflix and the data is getting choked. So there was some problem with the network. Apologize for that. But
It seems we have Kanak.
I think you lost him again. Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm going to just switch off my video. Maybe that'll help. So, Raviji, what we are thinking of obviously is that we don't know as to when schools will go back to the brick and mortar form. We don't know at what date, even after the May 3rd lockdown ends. If it does end at that day, I don't think schools are going to open up. We're going to probably open up last. And what I feel is that as educationists, we need to plan exit strategies also on 3 counts. 1, as to how are we going to make our schools more sort of sanitized so that cleaning has to happen to give everyone confidence. 2, we will have to think of all our stakeholders, be it our students, our teachers.
I think we lost him again. So as he joins in, let's move with the other panelists. May I request Reekrit to join in, please, and to talk about the exit strategy, the situation which may anticipate in July-August situation. Reekrit.
Right. Yes. Well. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Right, Ravi. Yes. So, keeping in mind the current situation where we find ourselves, where things aren't that clear, I think the fallacy of the education system in India is that it's not centrally regulated in terms of various aspects. Now, since India is a very diverse country, you would see that academically the rules are formed via the MHRD, and then each state education department has its own say in terms of how education is supposed to be sort of implemented in the states. So, given this fact itself, I think one of my panelists just raised this point about fees as well. Now, what you've seen recently is that various states have passed different policies and orders with regards to fees. Some states have allowed schools to charge monthly tuition fees, and some are saying that you can't charge at all, and there's a blanket ban. Well, I think that this is a very serious issue to address. First of all, this goes to show how essential various state governments and possibly the government in the center views education. Whereas being educators and being a part of this industry, I think that is very clear that we view education as essential. kids have to be educated. It's a part of life. Everyone has received a basic education in their lifetimes. So, during any crisis, education should, of course, be one of the major concerns of any government. But I think that that's one thing that is highly debatable in the sense that education isn't viewed as essential by various policymakers. So that's a very important point, and that itself will lead to a conclusion with regards to the exit strategy that we have in the next few months. Because as Kanak just mentioned prior to his his audio getting cut off, that um, that even if even if the lockdown is even if the curfew is lifted in various states, of course, and various hotspots, I think education institutions are going to be the last organizations to open their doors. So, of course, the exit plan, of course, has to keep in mind all of these factors. Now, coming down to the role that educators play, coming down to the role that we as management of schools can particularly play in this current uh, crisis, is that we can ease the pressure of our teams, we can ease the pressure of our parents and staff. There are various ways in which, of course, that can be done. So what we have done in our schools is a very simple program that, in this case, we've made it clear to everyone, every parent and student, that the syllabus is going to be revised once the schools reopen, regardless of the fact that they open after 2 or 3 months or 6 months. It doesn't matter. We are going to teach as well as we can. Fortunately or unfortunately, we don't use Zoom now because we face a lot of criticism with regards to the bad press about Zoom. But then we've shifted to Skype, and Skype has its own set of issues. So we're trying to deal with what is going on at this point in time. We're trying to train our teachers as to how they can teach better. But this process of training will continue post the lockdown, and I think that we found ourselves in a situation where this will go on for at least the next few months. So we can't predict what is going to happen. We can just wait and watch, but we can prepare for the worst and, of course, the best outcome.
Okay, Reekrit. Thank you.
Raviji, I'm back. Sorry, this is Kanak here. I'm keeping my video off.
Okay, excellent, correct. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll just complete what I was saying that time. So yeah, I think the exit strategy we'll have to think of, obviously, for all our stakeholders, be it our students, teachers, parents, and also the grade 4 staff that's associated with us, the society at large, because there's going to be public gathering. Obviously, that is something that needs to be addressed. So we as educators need to start thinking about it, because I think, as the other panelists were also sharing, that this is not going to end anytime soon, and we need to plan. What we feel at Jaipuria is a hybrid education model, where a part of our learning would continue via online classes or other tools, and also a part of it will continue in the classrooms, for the simple reason that we don't see kids coming back to school, A, and B, there is going to be restriction from the authorities about this. The other aspect which was being discussed was with the finances and economics, which I feel needs to be addressed. I'm very glad about some of the direction that's come in a couple of the states. For example, I'm very glad that the UP government and all the districts have given very clear instructions about that this is a deferred fees process. Like, you're not talking about a revenue loss, you're talking about a cash flow loss. And I think we all welcome that. I think we appreciate that eventually the fees is going to be collected, because as school promoters, as educators, we also have expenses, and these are going on, and if not increasing at this point of time. But we are okay with that. I feel that at the national level also there should be some more clarity as to fee collection and payment of fees. I know the Delhi government has made some announcements today, like an hour back. I've not read it in details to comment completely, but I believe that proactively everyone's looking at it. I feel it has to be addressed, and it should be somewhere fair to the schools as well as to the parents both, for the simple reason that there is a revenue loss happening everywhere and everyone's trying to make sense of this situation. So the more clarity comes on this, the better. We'll need to then plan other activities and events also in schools as part of our exit strategy as to exit strategy with COVID. So we have a lot of routine activities out and providing them with seminars, etc. Now, if this is a new normal, we will need to sort of bring the external learning that we talked about, that real-time outdoor learning, to the classroom using technology to cut costs as well. These are the things that, as educators, now we need to start thinking, talking, planning about.
Great, Kanak. Thank you. Good inputs. The clarity on policy on fees is emerging some of at this stage levels, but there has to be a better clarity at a national level and even at a MHRD level as a policy guideline, so that confusion is reduced.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
Right. Great point, Kanak. Vivek, your perspective on how you see the schools post COVID situation when they reopen.
Yeah, sure. Also, I think with all the educators, I agree on multiple aspects which are either related to the human aspects or the infrastructure aspect. But I want to bring in another aspect in this because my focus has always been strictly on the learning outcomes. And the way I see this exit strategy, in my opinion, it is more of an entry strategy rather than exit strategy. So entry to a new way of learning, entry to a future age of schools where we are not exiting from the corona situation. We are actually entering into absolutely new ways of learning, where the students have already progressed. They have become very comfortable with the technology, and now it is a one-way process. It is non-reversible. You cannot unlearn their comfort with technology. They have realized the comfort with technology. They understand what is a personalized education, and they are very comfortable with it. Now we cannot take them back to the original ways of learning, where we will say, okay, this is the common homework, everyone has to do the homework. People are very comfortable, and fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way we see, the technology will play the much bigger role than we were ever able to agree or imagine 3 months back. So this is, in my opinion, is a very, very clear entry strategy. And the school promoters and the principals have to think how to enter into a new age of learning. So there are four main points where I would like to bring your attention. First, how do we deal with the new way of teaching with the teachers? So teachers have become slightly more comfortable with technology now than they were 3 months back. And how do we capitalize this new learning for the teachers? Second is, how do we capitalize on the new way of learning for the students? Can we create a completely personalized learning atmosphere, a completely personalized learning experience, which is focused on every student? Like we are not going to just focus on the toppers. We are not going to only focus on the 90% score students. We have to focus on everyone. And this entire situation of 6 months is a very smooth transition into how school can provide a personalized education to even a 60% score student. And that is where the technology will play a big role. And another thing is the exit strategy, which you are saying exit strategy, is that for various reasons, the openness for students to transition school will also be very high, because there will be two types of schools. One will be completely ready with the advanced technology solutions. One will try to go back to the original way of teaching. So the times will not continue where a student takes admission in class 1 and he exits in class 12. That is not going to remain valid in future. People will make decisions, people will make quicker decisions, and the readiness of a school in terms of technology will be one of the key factors, in addition to obviously the fees, which will decide one of those decisions. And the last one is in the hands of management. now the management can take the power of technology to a completely different level. Right. So far, the technology was considered more of a ERP solution that, okay, I have to send reminders for the fees, I have to take the attendance, I have to take the basic tasks, which the technology could do even 20 years back. Now, the real power in the hand of management or the principal is that how can I focus the energy of my teachers in the best possible way. So if I have 20 hours of a particular teacher available for a particular class, what do I do with those 20 hours? Do I just follow the similar traditional way of isolating the lectures, or can I do something more smarter? So just to summarize my thoughts, I mean, I just take it, obviously the whole situation is unfortunate, and the entire country is suffering with it, and we wish that everyone be safe, etc. But my point is that I want to take it as a big opportunity, and it is a big opportunity to enter into a completely new way of teaching and completely new way of learning. The second part on the student side has already happened. Now the onus is on us, the school management, the onus is on us that we go hand in hand with the schools. We don't want to unlearn what they have already learned in last 3 months.
Good point, Vivek. You have talked about the opportunities. So, taking the cue from here, Roshan, let's start with you. How do you see the opportunities in this situation?
There are a lot of opportunities, and as I said before, I think a big one is related to the attitude that we've all had to gain of being able to adapt very quickly to new situations, and being able to quickly master new techniques, new technologies, to be very flexible, quick on one's feet, and I think that's a great quality which everyone has rapidly had to master, and that will continue. That's a huge opportunity. I think secondly, yes, there probably is, apart from obviously live classes like Zoom, there has been.
Roshan.
Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, apart from live classes like Zoom, which is the main core portion of this technological learning period, apart from that, there has been interesting use of a number of other potential apps, which do a range of different functions. So for example, a lot of people are using Google Classroom, which is a very useful tool for sending assignments online and then receiving the assignments, giving the feedback. It's like a very lightweight, simple learning management system, which anyone can use without much training. So that's been there. And then beyond that, there are, of course, a number of personalized learning tools, adaptive learning tools, assessment tools, which teachers have been getting used to, and which have been kind of being effective. However, having said that, those things have been used more in individual pockets of innovation rather than as the norm across the online education sector. But I think there's perhaps growing acceptance of that kind of methodology, and perhaps growing awareness of the potential of personalized learning tools and adaptive learning tools, which might present a big opportunity going forward. I think we've learned a lot about the nature of teacher training and how it should be done, because I think there has been a tradition of just shoving information down the throats of teachers and lecturing them, and they're poor teachers. They work so hard. They are very, very experienced on the ground, and that's not always proved very effective. What we've realized now is that if you give teachers a situation and the freedom to deal with that situation themselves, they will adapt and they will learn and they will come up with new methods in the process. So I think that's an insight that we've gained about the nature of how teacher training should be thought about across the education sector, particularly in a place like India. Yeah, so I mean, these are some of the main opportunities, but obviously there are more. We shouldn't be over optimistic. There are more challenges than opportunities at present.
Great. Thanks, Roshan. SheKar.
Well, I agree. At this point in time, we have more challenges on our hand than opportunities. But being optimistic and trying to look the other way, I think the first and the most important opportunity which we all have is the instantaneous shift in the way we do teaching, especially with the teachers. Now, if you go back, not much, not for a long time, but just a couple of months ago, so the idea was the teachers will stay in the classroom and they will deliver a lecture and they'll use videos or technology as a supplement. Today, the whole thing has got reversed. That means technology is now the main thing, and teachers are trying to say, okay, watch this video. If you have a conceptual confusion, I'm there and I'm going to clarify that, and then let's see how it goes from there. This is exactly what in schools we were trying to do over a period of time now, that try to tell them where to find information and stop there, let them explore the information. And then they come back to you and you can clarify them, you can handhold them, and then you can stop being a sage on stage. I think that is the biggest opportunity now, where the scenario, the environment, and the setting, the global setting has actually caused that. So let us build on it and say, continue to do this, show them the direction, but do not walk the way there. Just hold on, let them explore, and then let them come back to you in case of clarifications and doubts, and teachers continue to be the supplementary players in the whole thing. That's the biggest opportunity for schools. Secondly, disruption has happened in the schools, in education sector. When I say that, what I particularly mean is, now a school can scale. And I say a school can scale, it is not just limited to the 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 students which your campus can take. Now remember, all your teachers have become technologically savvy and they can handle the situation better. Now look at a scenario where you get other students who are not on your roles, but they can always sign up for your school classes and they can learn the subjects through your teachers. So in that sense of the word, teachers are real partners in the progress of an institution now. They were always, but today they also can add to your business line, where you can try to leverage on good teaching faculty and then expand your horizon and try to scale up to meet and help other children who may not be on the rolls of your schools. That's another opportunity. Third is coexistence, collaboration. Let's look at other schools, because what we are forgetting is 50% and above. There are 50% and above schools and 50% above parents and communities who do not have access to online learning programs. If we, those who can afford and those who have that luxury, if we can collaborate with them, that's the biggest opportunity. Hand-holding them and trying to utilize the resources which we already have invested upon and try to open up our boundaries, open up our gates, open up our hearts and get them on the thing so that you are better prepared. Something like this happens next time, or even otherwise, you will gradually but surely improve the curve, the learning curve for every student of this country. So these are the opportunities which I particularly feel available for us in the post-COVID-19 world.
Great, Chandrasekhar, thank you. Reekrit, your inputs on opportunities, if any, in this situation.
Well, right. Yes, there are many that I see at this point of time. Of course, as Chandrasekhar just said as well, I think it's just a wonderful opportunity if we can open our doors to students from other schools as well, and like students who do not have access to the tech that our students have, which we have recently done as well. So we are in touch with various schools around our campuses, and then we are giving them support in terms of online programs and pedagogies via the various apps that we have. But I think the most important outcome is that we've been screaming at the top of our lungs for the last few years about the fact as educators that our aim is to not teach students what to learn but how to learn. But I think given the current situation that we found ourselves in, I think students have realized this as well, parents have realized this as well, and I think the biggest group of people who have realized this point are us educators, that that in the post pandemic world, of course, you know, you can't teach the students what to learn anymore. They will, of course, learn. They have various reference sources on the net. The most important thing is to teach them how to learn, and I think that's a skill that we are trying to hone. I think that's a skill that we are trying to learn as well. You know, because it's very hard for us to adapt, given that the education system hasn't changed for the last few centuries. If you see, I have a very interesting case study that I just want to share. In 1937, Chicago, polio was a polio was an epidemic around that time. So what the schools in Chicago did for around the 500,000 students or so was to come up with a very innovative method to teach, which based on those times, of course, was innovative, and that was the radio. So they used to give lectures via the FM, and slowly after the epidemic, after a cure for polio was of course found after a decade or so, radio became major means of communication with the masses. I think out of the crisis, there will be a new method to teach that will evolve, that will come to the forefront. We are not too sure at this point of time, but then statistics are pointing, of course, to these video apps that we find ourselves on. But we are yet to find a holistic learning management solution which can cater to the demands and the needs of every stakeholder involved in the education system. So we have various options, of course. We've spoken about Zooms, we've spoken about Microsoft Teams, we've spoken about classrooms, Skype, and so on and so forth. But these are all knee-jerk reactions. We are yet to find a truly holistic platform that can help us in terms of running schools and can help students and parents in terms of making sure that education is on track. So something is yet to come out of this. As I said, of course, in the next few months, things will be clearer. But opportunities are there, challenges are there. We have to find the best course of action, and I'm sure that we will very, very soon.
Okay, Reekrit, great case study you mentioned about how the FM got used in a polio situation. I think similar something has to evolve in this situation. Kanak, your opinion, please.
Sure. So, I'd like to share an anecdote, and I'm sure a lot of people on the panel and as well as our viewers will be able to associate with it. The day the lockdown was announced, and we actually started working from home almost 10 days before that. From I think 12th of March, we announced working from home for everyone. And, the first few days, I made so many plans, personal plans. I signed up for piano lessons, guitar lessons. I set out a workout schedule for myself. I said that I'll do 3 courses on Coursera. And then I told my teachers that I'll be speaking to each school on an everyday basis. And then I set up, meetings with my friends on Zoom, on an house party. And on the second day, all of it failed because I was exhausted. And and the third day never came. And sort of, what I did was I took this learning into my professional sphere as well. And I understood that, the biggest opportunity for us right now is to keep things simple and to integrate technology into our actual processes instead of getting intimidated by technology or getting overwhelmed that this is a tough situation. Let's just see as to what works, because what works for me will not work for you and vice versa. It has to be internalized, whatever processes. I'm seeing a lot of questions and answers that, people are asking for tools. I use some tools, impart learning into the classroom and into the houses of kids as well. But ultimately, it has to be internalized to your teaching process. The second opportunity I feel is, as educators, this is the best time for us to be true to our core, which is when we said that, we are a learning organization, when we said that as a fraternity, we are learning people, we always underestimated the power of learning of the educator. So now is the time for the educator to herself and himself learn more. I think which is very important. This time has provided that opportunity. Pedagogical tools, reversing the classroom, doing research themselves, collaborating with other educators. I mean, this is a fantastic opportunity for us to do that. And I feel that somewhere these are the learnings that we will need to take forward with us in a post-COVID world, whenever that comes. But that is something that we'll need to take forward. I think we are at the cusp of something even bigger in terms of a revolution in the education fraternity. And I think we should make the most of this time, integrate everything and move forward. That I feel is so exciting. Today, when I see students doing yoga, looking at a screen, it is so exciting that how come we never thought of it before? Why did we need to have yoga sessions in school when technically everyone talks about doing yoga at 6 o'clock in the morning? So why didn't we think of this before? Last night, I was doing a guitar session with Ehsan Nurani, and Ehsan himself said, how come we never thought of this before? How come we were not doing guitar sessions before? Why were we doing it in the classroom? This is so brilliant. I feel these are the opportunities that we'll need to take forward. However, I don't think that we'll be able to discount sort of the connect that a face-to-face brings once we're back to the brick and mortar world. I think that's also fairly important because that human connect will make a lot of difference. However, right now, what we have is a horrible situation. I think if we remain positive, if we keep it simple, we'll be able to make the most of it. And this is going to be an opportunity that all of us will remember for years to come, because this will reshape our thinking, reinvent education in the long run.
Great, Kanak, great inputs. And we have Vivek to speak about the opportunities. I think you started it all, Vivek. You started talking about opportunities, and let's keep it brief, Vivek, because we have got more than 61 questions and more than 100 chats. So I think we have to answer them also.
Yeah. No. I mean, I'll just keep it very, very short. I mean, the way I look at it, there are two aspects. One aspect where the online is inferior to a face-to-face interaction, which is the teaching part, where our all five senses work together, our eye expressions, facial expressions, connect, our body language, everything works together, and the synthesis of it delivers the lectures in the best possible way. So the online classes, while this is a necessity today, but in my opinion, that is a slightly inferior way of teaching as compared to face in the classroom, where there's a lot of interaction takes place, peer-to-peer learning, social learning takes place. But having said that, the large part of opportunity comes in the form of how we deal post-class. Like, can I give, if I am a teacher and there are 10 students, can I make 10 different assignments to them? Because not everyone is at the same level. Now, if I am a 60% score student, maybe you give me slightly easier questions so that I don't feel demotivated, I don't lose interest, I don't feel intimidated by it, and I maybe have an aspiration to move from 60% to 70%. Is it possible? Like the platforms like SpeedLabs, which are completely holistic in delivering the personalized education, and every student, not just the selected one, every student can be delivered the complete personalized learning. And I think these are the set of opportunities where all the educators and the leaders will focus, because going back when to normalcy, the face-to-face interaction in the classroom is required, and online classes can never substitute it for various reasons. The most funniest thing comes from my own home. My son is in class 6, and while he's attending the live classes, the YouTube is live on the back end. Now, how do you control that? I mean, he's just listening songs, and he's not attentive in the class. What is the guarantee? I mean, I scolded him one day, why are you doing this? He said, nobody is watching me, don't worry. I said, no, that's not the point. But, coming back to the thing that, see, online teaching is obviously cannot substitute a face-to-face teaching, and we will go back to schools and we will do much better in face-to-face classes. But opportunity lies, what do you do after teaching? And that is where, some of us platforms like SpeedLabs can make huge difference in your students. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, thanks, Vivek, for saying that what's the challenges of a digital education, which right now we are having through Zoom or any other platform. How to maintain the focus. So, there is a huge number of questions. Unbelievable, 64 questions are here, and we all already have 1 hour already in this panel. So I think max we can go on for 15 minutes or 20 minutes more. So I will request each of the panelists to look at the Q&A questions and select. I think many questions are similar, and many are around Zoom. So it's like safe or unsafe. There's a one issue. So we can club the questions and have a combined answers also. So I will request each speaker to pick up the question which you feel most passionate about answering. So, and answer them and briefly as much as possible. So where do we start? Let's start with SheKar, VP.
All right. I'm actually looking at this one of the first questions which has come up, and I think I'll take this. It talks about how are we looking at only CBSE or ICSE syllabus and not the state board syllabus, where the students there do not have access to laptops or iPads or tabs. And what about those students? Well, I think I agree with you. I think it is Preeta who has asked this. I completely agree with you, and that is indeed the challenge. In fact, going by the newspaper article a week ago, I think, where the Times of India reported that 43% is the statistics that in India, the parents or the houses who have access to technology or a device, and the remaining people out of 143% is less than 50%, less than half. Remaining do not have any kind of access to any tabs or digital devices. I think that's the real challenge. As I said in the beginning, this is the wake-up call for all of us to digitalize learning. We have seen in the last 3 weeks that online learning has picked up. The teachers and the students have taken up to online learning like how an ant takes to sugar or jaggery. But then that's not enough. We need to take it to the next level. I think this is where I would like to connect with the case study what Reekrit mentioned, where the Chicago case study, where if we can look at radio as a medium or voice as an option, and I'm sure it is happening because a lot of these radio channels, as well as even the Vivid Bharati, the All India Radio, they are also telecasting a lot of things. I think since the education in our country, especially school education, is a concurrent topic where the school, states as well as the center can work on it simultaneously. I think it is the responsibility of the state governments also to bring up programs in regional languages so that the state syllabus can be covered. I think that will be my take on the question.
Great. May I request Roshan to look at the questions and respond to some of them?
Yeah, had a chance to glance through the questions. Of course, there are now 69 questions on there, so it's impossible to address them all directly. But broadly, I observed kind of maybe 3 themes of questions. So one is, a lot of people are asking, what to do if the technology doesn't work, if the student doesn't have this device or that device. And I'll dismiss that question very quickly because unfortunately there are no magic answers. If they don't have the technology in the home, they don't have it. And you have to just manage on a case-by-case basis the best that you can and cater to as many people as you can. If there's one device being shared in the home, try to engage the parents and explain to them why it's very important that the education aspect should be prioritized. But there's only so much you can do. So I don't want to dwell on that question. There are questions about the edtech sector and the vast range of options that have become available very quickly in the edtech sector. So I guess Mr. Vivek is representing that sector, so I'll leave that section of the question answer maybe to him later. But just briefly from my point of view, I think that right now it has been, if anything, a big opportunity. I think the edtech sector is the one sector in the world that is actually benefiting massively from this crisis. And they're all pitching their products, and they're all making their products available for free at present. So it is becoming difficult for school leaders to discern between them and to decide which ones are actually good quality, which ones are not. So what I would say is that look at their track records, look at their past reputations. You will get a good pitch in your inbox, and when you're looking for a tool, you may be minded to very quickly go after that tool when it gets put in front of you. But before just taking it just because it appears in front of you, look at what the type of tool it is, look at what features it is offering, and then research other tools that are also offering similar features before committing to any particular one, and look at them. And then the most interesting question which has come out there is on the idea of psychological well-being of students, towards students. I think one thing to remember is that that should be built in very much more than usual into the way that we're doing teaching right now, into online teaching. I think it's almost worth stating that pretty much every class should begin with a few moments which are dedicated just to checking in on the well-being of students. Having a few maybe one-to-one conversations. You can even have a very short private dialogue with a student that others can't hear if you need to. Some schools have been experimenting with the idea of doing almost like a school assembly in the morning online, getting all of the students onto one place just to maintain that feeling of camaraderie and of a school community. I think it's hard to administer technologically, but if you can make it work, it can be quite beneficial. And it may not be possible to do every day, but you could do it maybe once a week, for example. It's a worthwhile thing to do. And then another thing is if your school is fortunate enough to employ psychological counselors and staff dedicated to that role at normal times, don't overlook the importance that they can play at this time too. Sessions can be set up with them. They can even take classes. They can have dedicated sessions with students. I think just bear in mind at all times that the well-being of students at present is of absolute paramount priority. It's very easy for mental health to go downwards at this time, so keep it in the forefront of your thoughts.
Great, Roshan. Thank you. There are a lot of questions about technological issues and tech issues and also other issues. So, Vivek, you want to respond on that?
Yeah, sure. So I'll take a couple of questions from Trapti ma'am and Archana ma'am. So the gist of the question is that how to choose a particular technology platform, right? And as recently Reekrit and Roshan both highlighted that this is also a time and opportunity for the school owners as well as the principals to evaluate multiple offerings, right? Because in general we are busy in our day-to-day work and we don't get time to attend to multiple such requests. But now some of our logistics works are not there, so we have some spare time, and it will be useful for the school management as a team to evaluate more options than before, and then accordingly choose them, understand the basic philosophy what a particular tool is offering, and not just the features but the ability to think as a school owner rather than just as a technology player, because technology can do 100 things, but out of those 100 things, which are the top 10 things which are most crucial, which are the top 10 things which are very readily implementable, which do not require too much of grinding, right? So the smooth implementation of certain features is more important. So rather, if you ask me, having 100 features versus 5 features which are very useful and easily implementable, I will go for 5 features, because there is not much inertia which I will have to overcome, there is not much friction, and it's a smooth transition into a new ways of learning, and then obviously go to the next 5 rather than cramming more features. So my suggestion will be for all the school owners as well as principals that evaluate more options, talk to the edtech service providers, spend time, because that is one most important thing that we can do today. Obviously, there are other things which, as a unit, your operations team and the admin team and the academy team is already taking care of. But as thought leaders, it is your job to focus on the right transition for the future.
Fine. Vivek, thank you. Reekrit, you want to address some of the questions, please?
Yeah, sure. So, just around 2 days ago, I was on a Twitter chat, and then I faced a similar situation that I find myself in now as well. We had 40 questions on that Twitter chat, and I was the only person on that chat with regards to education. So there are lots of questions that have been asked. These are wonderful questions. We might not be able to take all the questions, but please do feel free to get in touch with me on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram if there are particular questions that you want to ask. But the basic theme of the questions is the same as well. We have some questions with regards to school fees. We have some questions with regards to the best app to use at this point of time. Which online program do we use? We have certain questions about how do we teach online. So I'll try and talk about all of these three themes briefly. So as I said, with regards to school fees, which is a very controversial topic, of course, I think that we'll just have to wait for orders again from the government, and I will urge all educators to not make hasty decisions. It's common sense. If you can't charge fees, it becomes difficult to run your institutions. But we all in this. Together, everyone is going through the same thing at this point in time. So just stay strong, and please make sure that you are paying your staff with whatever means you have. Your teachers are working very, very hard. They are going out of their way. They are picking up skills that they haven't even thought about till now. So a commendable job in terms of teachers. So please support your faculty. Please support your staff. Please support your support staff as well. Your drivers, your peons, your conductors for buses, your cleaners. They are also going through a lot at this point in time as well. So this is with regards to the school fees and the school financial crunch that we find ourselves in. Secondly, which is the best app to use? There is no answer. Every app has its own pros and cons. Zoom, Skype. If you look at Classroom, you can look at Microsoft Teams. Any of these apps, whatever suits your team. We have found Skype to be effective because of lesser privacy concerns, which at least the privacy concerns haven't come in the press much, like Zoom. So that's why we've recommended Skype. But they all good. They all have their pros and cons, and whatever you're comfortable with. Now, with regards to the online pedagogy, how do you teach your kids? It's difficult to adapt at this point in time, but just a few quick pointers if I can share, because since you've used Skype and since you've used Zoom in the past. So we've created timetables for 5 working days a week. We've divided the day into 3 lessons of 1 hour each. So this wouldn't be your typical 40-minute class. This would be a 1 hour class with 40 minutes of lecture and interaction, and with a 20-minute Q&A. So you've got roughly 3 hours of classes with 10 minutes break in between, and then so this will be from 10 to 1:30. Then from 2 to 4, we've kept it as a doubt clearing time. So parents and students can get in touch with the teachers based on whether they can answer the questions at that point of time. We've also made it compulsory to have 3 type of classes per day. So one will be your technical class. So supposedly, if it's for class 8, you'll have supposedly science or maths, whatever first. The second would be a core scholastic class, which is very, very, very important, given the fact that kids are stuck at home and they need some interaction with their teachers. So music, dance. And the third will be a language class. Of course, in senior secondary classes, the emphasis wouldn't be on core scholastic, it will be on scholastic a bit more. And one last thing that we've done, which we've received a lot of positive feedback for, is that we've come up with a daily PE class from 8 to 8:30. So all our kids starting next week are going to take part in a PE class where they will be either a live video of our PE faculty or a video which will be shared with them via the WhatsApp groups and so on and so forth. So it's going to be from 8 to 8:30, and then from 8:30 to 10, then they'll have time to change, take a shower, eat the breakfast, and then join the classes. So what I'll just say in the end is that it's important to not only look after the mental well-being of our students, but also the physical well-being.
Great, Reekrit, thank you. And Kanak?
Sure.
Yeah, so I will request you to take the question and also do a summary of this whole session. Okay.
Sure, Raviji. So I feel I went through the questions, and I feel that most of the questions have been covered. There's one theme remaining which I would like to address, which is learning beyond content. I think a couple of the questions were about that. Should we look at learning beyond content, and should we look at sort of theater and sports education also happening? So I feel that there is a lot of scope, a lot of potential to make theater studies and theater performances, music classes, sort of yoga and Tai Chi, Taekwondo, all of that happen online. I think we should continue doing that. That'll add a lot of value. I feel that, when we said that we don't have time for things, this pandemic has sort of made us all on the same platform. And if we don't get time to do something right now, it's essentially because of lack of discipline and genuine intent rather than time. So I think that's a great opportunity as well for us to look at. So in your schools, and I speak to all educators and to all parents, we need to understand that we need to manage this time well. Hence, we need to have more empathy. And, it's very theoretically sounds very good that, my child is going to wake up at 6:30 in the morning, and 7 o'clock in the morning, the teacher is going to take the child through a lot of sessions right away. And then at 8 o'clock, the teacher is going to take mathematics. At 8:45, the teacher is going to take philosophy. And at 9:30, this and whatever. And I, as a parent, would continue working. Well, if the lockdown is applicable to me as a parent, it's also applicable to the teachers. They're also doing the household chores. They're also as engaged with their families as they would like to be. They'd also like to be part of their own kids' teaching learning process. So I feel that somewhere empathy and this collaborative teaching, that's something we've always talked about. We've always wanted at our schools. That is also now coming to the forefront. So I want to encourage it. I want to talk about that everything that we thought that we didn't have time for, be it cooking, be it dancing, that we thought that, or reading a book or helping out your family with chores is a skill that our kids are now losing out on. Now is the time to actually bring it all back. And I think our kids across the country, across the world are doing wonderfully well. So yes, if you have scope for it in your schools, please go ahead and do that. That was one aspect which I thought was open. Right. So Raviji asked me to summarize. So I think, we've talked a lot about not being overwhelmed with technology. We've understood that, the exit strategy we will all need to think about in terms of individual schools as well as school chains. As educators, we need to exchange ideas. We need to think about this in a long-term basis, not just 3rd of May or 15th of July, but at least I would suggest to every educator out there that plan till at least the end of this year to get things in place, and look at this as an opportunity. Bring it on, look at it so positively that everything that we do right now adds value to the children, to the parents, to our teachers, to all our stakeholders right now. And we'll be able to take these learning back to sort of the brick and mortar world once things open up, and we'll be able to do wonders to all our stakeholders in the future as well.
So thank you, Kanak. And I think Vivek has something to say. So Vivek, you can speak, please.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I think as all the co-panelists have already stressed the importance of transition to technology enable schools. And consciously and unconsciously, we all compete with other schools in our local geographies in some way or other. And the one of the tools that will be crucial will be the technology involvement. And as a founder of SpeedLabs, I would like to welcome all of you to access our platform for your CBSE and ICSE schools for next 1 month. We are providing complimentary access, and it will be very useful to get your feedbacks and suggestions. And we are very confident that with a team of more than 50 IITians and other experts, we have built it, and your students will love it. So please reach out to me, and we are very happy to get your suggestions and feedback on it. Thank you,
Thanks,
Ravi.
Vivek. Great initiative, great opportunity for schools to try and test the edtech options they can look at. And I thank all eminent speakers here: Roshan, Chandra, Reekrit, Vivek, Kanak. You all have great experience and great ideas. Thanks for having the patience to reply to so many questions and chats. And those who did not get the answers, you can connect to these speakers on the social media. They are all over the place. They are, I think, easily available and accessible to you. And please, I will also request all the speakers and the audience to kindly share this video. It is available right now on the Facebook on the digital learning page. It's live, and so that the great ideas which have been discussed here are spread widely, and so that it benefits the whole education community. So with this, I thank everyone for taking the time to be here. Thank you so much, and namaskar, and stay safe and stay home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raviji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raviji. Thank you, everyone. Bye, guys. All the best. Stay safe. Thank you.
All the best. Take care.
All the best. Take care.
Bye.